ever wondered how the Nephilim survived the Great Flood? These mysterious giants shrouded in ancient lore and biblical texts are figures that have intrigued scholars, theologians, and curious minds for millennia. Were they truly wiped out by the cataclysmic deluge that swept across the earth? Or did they find a way to escape, biding their time before re-emerging in the post-flood world? Today we embark on a journey to unravel this mystery, diving deep into the scriptures, ancient traditions, and myths to uncover how these legendary beings might have survived and reappeared after the flood. Prepare yourself for a detailed exploration filled with hidden secrets, ancient lore, and surprising truths that could reshape your understanding of the Nephilim and their enduring legacy. The Nephilim are among the most enigmatic figures in biblical history. According to the Holy Scriptures and ancient Jewish and Semitic traditions, these giants were the offspring of fallen angels who united with human women. The book of Genesis, particularly in chapter 6, tells us that the sons of God took wives from the daughters of men, resulting in the birth of these ancient giants. These beings, also referred to as the men of renown, were not just mythological figures, but were considered real entities who walked the earth before the floodwaters covered the land. But who exactly were these sons of God? The phrase has been interpreted in various ways, but the most common understanding, particularly in ancient Jewish and early Christian traditions, is that it refers to angelic beings. These angels, according to the narrative, were not content with their celestial existence and sought to mingle with humanity, leading to a corruption of the divine order that God had established. The offspring of these unions were the Nephilim, giants of immense size, strength, and malevolence. These giants were far from mere myth. They were described as terrifying, monstrous beings whose presence struck fear into the hearts of people, both before and after the flood. The Nephilim were not just physically imposing, they were also depicted as malevolent entities closely associated with pagan gods. In ancient times, these so-called gods were often fallen angels, masquerading as deities, seeking worship and glory from unsuspecting humans. The Nephilim were consistently portrayed as horrific, their very existence a perversion of the natural order established by God. To fully understand the origin of the Nephilim, we must first delve into the story of the first angelic fall as described in the Bible. The first fall, as depicted in Revelation 12, involved Lucifer, also known as Satan, who was once a highly esteemed angel in the heavenly hierarchy. Lucifer's pride and desire to ascend above God led to his rebellion. He declared, "I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the Mount of Assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount Zaphon. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High." Isaiah 14:13-14. Lucifer's rebellion was not a solitary act. He managed to sway a third of the angelic host to join him in his insurrection. These angels, once servants of the divine, became the first demons, cast out of heaven and stripped of their former glory. The fall of Lucifer and his followers marked the beginning of a cosmic struggle between good and evil, a battle that would continue throughout human history. This rebellion had far-reaching consequences, not just for the angels who fell, but for all of creation. The fallen angels, now demons, became adversaries of God, constantly seeking to undermine his work. They introduced sin, corruption, and death into the world, leading humanity astray and sowing discord wherever they could. The Nephilim, as we shall see, were a direct result of this cosmic rebellion. The second angelic fall, as narrated in Genesis 6, occurred much earlier in human history, at the dawn of civilization. This fall was not driven by pride, as in the case of Lucifer, but by lust and the desire to corrupt God's creation further. Another group of angels influenced by Satan's rebellion descended to earth with the intent of mingling with humanity. These angels, referred to as the sons of God, took human women as wives, and from these unions, the Nephilim were born. This act of rebellion was even more insidious than the first. By interbreeding with humans, these angels sought to create a new race, a hybrid of divine and mortal beings. The Nephilim were the result of this unholy union, beings that were neither fully human nor entirely angelic, but something far more dangerous. They were giants, both in stature and in power, and their existence posed a direct threat to the divine order that God had established. The pre-flood world was transformed into a realm of great confusion and chaos, where divine laws were corrupted and the boundaries between heaven and earth were blurred. These hybrid beings, the Nephilim, were a physical manifestation of this corruption, a grotesque fusion of angelic power and human frailty. They were beings of immense strength, possessing abilities that far surpassed those of ordinary humans. But they were also beings of immense evil, using their power to dominate, oppress, and destroy. Some ancient accounts suggest that the fallen angels did not stop at corrupting humanity. According to the Book of Enoch and other ancient texts, these angels also tampered with the natural world itself, altering the very essence of animals. This interference led to the creation of monstrous creatures that roamed the earth alongside the Nephilim. These mutations made the animal kingdom even more terrifying, with creatures that were stronger, larger, and more ferocious than anything seen before or since. The Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text, provides detailed accounts of these events. It describes how the fallen angels taught humans the secrets of heaven, knowledge that was not meant for mortals. They introduced humanity to the arts of warfare, the use of weapons, and the crafting of deadly tools. They taught women the art of enchantments, root cuttings, and other forms of witchcraft. They revealed the secrets of the stars, the movements of the heavenly bodies, and the mysteries of the natural world. This forbidden knowledge led to the further corruption of humanity, as people began to use it for evil purposes. The fallen angels' interference with animals resulted in the creation of hybrid creatures, part human, part beast. These beings were abominations, unnatural in every sense, and they contributed to the chaos and disorder of the pre-flood world. The earth became a place of violence, where the Nephilim and their monstrous offspring ruled with an iron fist. Humanity, once the crown of God's creation, was reduced to a state of fear and subjugation. The Bible, along with ancient Jewish traditions like the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch, tells us that the Nephilim terrorized the earth. They were not just warriors of immense size and strength, but also beings of immense cruelty. Entire races of giants are recorded, known for their violent tendencies and even for practicing cannibalism. The pre-flood world became a place of great disorder and violence, a nightmarish landscape where hybrid and bestial beings ruled, spreading fear and chaos among humans. Now, in the days of Noah, the earth was filled with violence. Genesis 6:11-12 states, "Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways." The corruption of the earth was not limited to humanity alone. It extended to all living creatures. The Nephilim and their offspring were a major factor in this corruption, using their power to dominate and oppress the weaker inhabitants of the earth. The Nephilim were also associated with pagan worship. The fallen angels who fathered them were often revered as gods by ancient peoples, and the Nephilim themselves were worshipped as demigods. This idolatry further corrupted humanity, leading people away from the worship of the true God and into the darkness of paganism. The Nephilim and their fallen angelic parents taught humans to worship false gods, leading them into practices that were abhorrent to the Creator. This period of history was marked by great moral decay. The lines between good and evil were blurred, and the earth was filled with wickedness. The Nephilim and their influence spread across the globe, creating a world that was hostile to the ways of God. It was a time when the righteous were oppressed and the wicked flourished, a time when the very foundations of creation were being shaken. In response to the rampant corruption and violence on the earth, God decided to cleanse His creation through a great flood. The flood was not just a natural disaster, but a divine act of judgment, aimed at purging the earth of the Nephilim and the wickedness they had brought about. Noah, a righteous man in the eyes of God, was chosen to build an ark and preserve a remnant of humanity in the animal kingdom. Noah's ark, as described in Genesis, was a massive vessel built to withstand the deluge that would cover the earth. God instructed Noah to take with him his family and pairs of every kind of animal to ensure that life would continue after the flood. For 40 days and 40 nights the rains fell, and the fountains of the deep burst forth. The waters rose, covering even the highest mountains, and in all life on earth perished, except for those aboard the ark. The flood was a cataclysmic event, one that wiped out the Nephilim and the corrupted creation they had brought about. The Bible describes how the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth, destroying every living thing that was not in the ark. The Nephilim, with all their power and might, were unable to escape God's judgment. Their reign of terror came to an end, and the earth was cleansed of their influence. But this raises a crucial question. If the flood was meant to destroy all life on earth, how did the Nephilim reappear after the flood? The Bible tells us that after the flood, Noah and his family repopulated the earth, and a new era of human history began. Yet as we continue through the biblical narrative, we find references to giants once again. Giants who were just as fearsome and powerful as those who existed before the flood. The book of Genesis provides a clue to this mystery. Genesis 6:4 states, "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them." This verse suggests that the Nephilim were present both before and after the flood. But how could this be possible if the flood was supposed to destroy all life corrupted by the fallen angels? One compelling theory is that after the flood, the fallen angels once again descended to earth and took human women as wives, producing a new generation of giants. This would explain the continued presence of giants in the biblical narrative, long after the floodwaters had receded. This theory suggests that the same corruption that led to the first generation of Nephilim was repeated, with fallen angels continuing their interference in human affairs, undeterred by the devastation of the flood. The post-flood world was not immune to the influence of these fallen angels. The Bible mentions several races of giants that emerged after the flood, including the Anakim, Rephaim, and Zamzummim. These giants were encountered by the Israelites during their conquest of Canaan, and they were described as being of immense size and strength. The Israelites were often fearful of these giants, describing themselves as grasshoppers in comparison. The story of David and Goliath is perhaps the most famous example of a post-flood giant. Goliath, a Philistine warrior, was described as being 6 cubits and a span in height, approximately 9 feet tall. He was a formidable opponent, clad in heavy armor and wielding a massive spear. Yet despite his size and strength, Goliath was defeated by the young shepherd David, who relied not on physical might, but on his faith in God. The presence of these giants after the flood suggests that the fallen angels continued their rebellion against God, seeking to corrupt humanity and disrupt the divine order. The Nephilim once again became a scourge on the earth, spreading fear and chaos wherever they went. But this time, they were met with resistance from the people of God, who were determined to rid the land of these monstrous beings. While the theory of a second angelic fall is compelling, it is not the only explanation for the reappearance of giants after the flood. Another, less widely accepted theory is that some giants may have survived the flood by taking refuge in the highest mountains or clinging to the trunks of ancient cedars. There are even legends, although not supported by biblical evidence, that suggest the giant Og, king of Bashan, somehow survived the flood, perhaps even aboard Noah's Ark, though this is more likely a myth or allegory rather than a factual account. According to some Jewish legends, the giant Og was so large that he was able to cling to the outside of the ark, surviving the flood by holding on for dear life. Another legend suggests that he was allowed on the ark by Noah, but only on the condition that he would serve the family of Noah after the flood. These stories, while intriguing, are not supported by the biblical text and should be taken as speculative folklore rather than historical fact. There is also the possibility that the giants who reappeared after the flood were descendants of those who had managed to survive in other ways. Some ancient texts suggest that not all the Nephilim were wiped out by the flood, but that a remnant of them managed to escape to distant lands where they continued to thrive. These survivors may have passed down their knowledge and power to their descendants, leading to the emergence of new races of giants in the post-flood world. Whatever the case may be, the reappearance of giants after the flood raises profound questions about the nature of these beings and the ongoing spiritual battle between good and evil. Were they merely tall men, as some skeptics suggest, or were they something more? Hybrid beings, born of a perversion of God's creation, embodying a corruption that was far more than skin deep. The Bible portrays them not merely as tall humans, but as the offspring of fallen angels. a race that represented a profound corruption of God's intended order. The influence of the Nephilim and their fallen angelic parents extended far beyond their physical presence. These beings also introduced humanity to the dark arts, teaching them practices that were forbidden by God. The Book of Enoch and other ancient texts describe how the fallen angels taught humans the secrets of heaven, knowledge that was not meant for mortals. This included the arts of warfare, enchantments, root cuttings, and other forms of witchcraft. The fallen angels' interference with humanity led to the spread of occult practices, which became widespread in the pre-flood world. Women in particular were taught the art of enchantments and the use of herbs and potions for magical purposes. This knowledge gave rise to what we now recognize as witchcraft and sorcery. The Nephilim and their parents were responsible for introducing these practices, which further corrupted humanity and led them away from the worship of the true God. After the flood, these practices did not disappear. The re-emergence of giants in the post-flood world was accompanied by a resurgence of occult knowledge. The fallen angels, undeterred by the destruction of the flood, continued to influence humanity, spreading their dark teachings wherever they could. The Bible and ancient traditions tell us that these practices were particularly prevalent in the Canaanite cultures, where the Nephilim were worshipped as gods, and their knowledge was passed down through generations. The spread of occult knowledge had a profound impact on human history. It led to the rise of powerful civilizations that were steeped in idolatry and paganism, civilizations that would later become enemies of the people of God. The influence of the Nephilim and their fallen angelic parents can be seen in the practices of the ancient Egyptians, Babylonians, and other cultures that worshipped false gods and engaged in forbidden practices. According to Jewish traditions, when the Nephilim died, their spirits did not go to either hell or heaven. Instead, they transformed into unclean spirits, wandering the earth as restless souls. These spirits, known as wandering souls, remained among humanity, perpetuating their influence in the world. The spirits of the Nephilim are considered a lower demonic classification, part of a hierarchy of demons that continues to exist to this day. These unclean spirits were believed to be the cause of many of the hauntings and apparitions that have been reported throughout history. Unlike fallen angels, who were once heavenly beings, these spirits were the remnants of the giants of the past. They were believed to be malevolent entities, seeking to cause harm and mischief wherever they could. The New Testament also makes reference to unclean spirits, particularly in the Gospels, where Jesus is described as casting out demons from possessed individuals. These demons, or unclean spirits, were believed to be the spirits of the Nephilim, continuing their malevolent activities even after death. The Gospels describe how these spirits would often possess individuals, causing them to act in destructive and harmful ways. The legacy of the Nephilim can also be seen in the various myths and legends of demonic beings that have persisted throughout history. In many cultures, there are stories of malevolent spirits that prey on the living, seeking to cause harm and spread fear. These stories, while varied in their details, often share common themes with the biblical accounts of the Nephilim and their influence on humanity. The intriguing question that arises from all this is, how did these giants reappear after the flood? This question is fascinating and piques curiosity, especially since the answer can be found in the sacred scriptures themselves. In the book of Genesis, there is an explanation of how the giants re-emerged after the flood, which continues to be a subject of great interest and debate to this day. Consider now the reading of Genesis chapter 6. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. As we analyze the verse, there is a clear chronology highlighting the presence of giants in two distinct periods. The text mentions that there were giants before the flood, indicating that the Nephilim existed during that time. Additionally, the verse also states that these beings were still present sometime after the flood. Therefore, the chronology reveals that the presence of the Nephilim was not limited to the period before the flood, but also continued after that event. The verse specifies that the sons of God had relations with the women of the pre-flood era, and similarly also had relations with women after the flood. This suggests that even after the cataclysm, the influence of the Nephilim persisted, manifesting again on Earth and generating a continuity of this hybrid lineage. According to the biblical text, the fallen angels continued to have relations with human women after the flood, generating a new generation of giants. The verse in question mentions that in the pre-flood era, there were giants, and this presence was confirmed both before and after the flood. This means that even after the Great Destruction, the Nephilim returned and generated another generation of giants. After the Great Flood, various races of giants reappeared on Earth. Among the principal races that emerged again were the Rephaim, the Anakim or Anakites, and the Zuzim or Zamzumim. These races were known for their immense stature and imposing characteristics. They were feared by the inhabitants of the ancient Near East and were often described in terms that emphasized their supernatural origins and terrifying presence. The Rephaim, for instance, were a race of giants that inhabited the land of Canaan before the Israelites arrived. They were mentioned in several biblical passages, including Deuteronomy 2:11, which describes them as a people great and many and tall as the Anakim. The Rephaim were so fearsome that the Israelites initially hesitated to enter the land of Canaan because of their presence. The Anakim, another race of giants, were said to be descendants of the Nephilim. They were known for their incredible size and strength, and they were among the most formidable enemies that the Israelites encountered during their conquest of Canaan. The most famous of the Anakim was Goliath, the giant warrior defeated by David. The Zuzim, also known as the Zamzumim, were another race of giants mentioned in the Bible. They were defeated by the Israelites during their conquest of the Promised Land. The Zuzim were known for their height and strength, and they were feared by the surrounding nations. These giants faced various biblical figures who fought against them. Joshua, David, and Moses are some of the heroes who, according to the scriptures, confronted these giants. These battles played a significant role in the biblical narrative, demonstrating the continued struggle between the children of God and the giants who appeared after the flood. The reappearance of giants after the flood has significant theological implications. It raises questions about the nature of God's judgment and the persistence of evil in the world. If the flood was meant to cleanse the earth of corruption, why did the giants reappear? Was God's judgment incomplete, or did the fallen angels find a way to continue their rebellion despite the flood? One possible explanation is that the flood was not meant to eliminate evil entirely, but to reset creation, giving humanity a fresh start. The reappearance of giants after the flood may be seen as a test for the new generation of humans, a challenge to their faith in obedience to God. The giants, as representatives of the corruption that had plagued the pre-flood world, were a reminder of the consequences of turning away from God's commands. Another interpretation is that the reappearance of giants was a sign of the ongoing spiritual battle between good and evil. The fallen angels, undeterred by the flood, continued their efforts to corrupt humanity and disrupt the divine order. The giants were a manifestation of this ongoing struggle, serving as both a physical and spiritual challenge to the people of God. The Bible also suggests that the reappearance of giants was part of God's plan to demonstrate His power and sovereignty. By allowing the giants to reappear, God provided opportunities for His people to demonstrate their faith and reliance on Him. The defeat of giants like Goliath by seemingly weaker individuals like David served as a powerful testament to God's ability to overcome even the most formidable foes. The story of the Nephilim has not been confined to the pages of ancient texts. Over the centuries, these giants have continued to capture the imagination of people around the world. They have appeared in countless myths, legends, and works of fiction, often as symbols of great power, ancient mysteries, and the struggle between good and evil. In modern popular culture, the Nephilim have been featured in books, movies, and television shows, often portrayed as powerful beings with supernatural abilities. They are sometimes depicted as heroes, sometimes as villains, but always as beings of immense significance. Their story has been adapted and reinterpreted in various ways, reflecting contemporary concerns and interests. The Nephilim have also been the subject of numerous conspiracy theories, with some claiming that these ancient giants were not entirely wiped out and that their descendants continue to exist in secret today. These theories often involve the idea that the Nephilim are part of a hidden elite that controls world events from behind the scenes. Despite the many different interpretations and adaptations of the Nephilim story, the core elements of their myth, giants born of divine beings and human women, a symbol of corruption and a challenge to divine order, remain powerful and resonant. The Nephilim continue to serve as a reminder of the ancient struggle between good and evil, a struggle that is still relevant today. The mystery of how the Nephilim survived the Great Flood and reappeared in the post-flood world is one that continues to intrigue and captivate. Whether through divine intervention, the persistence of fallen angels, or other means, the giants found a way to return, bringing with them the dark knowledge and malevolent influence that had once led the world into chaos. Their story is a testament to the complexities of divine judgment, the persistence of evil, and the ongoing spiritual battle that has shaped human history. The Nephilim, with their supernatural origins and imposing presence, remain one of the most enigmatic figures in the Bible, representing both the potential for great power and the dangers of corruption. As we continue to explore the ancient texts and traditions that speak of these giants, we are reminded of the profound mysteries that still surround our understanding of the past. The story of the Nephilim is not just a tale of giants and fallen angels. It is a story that challenges us to consider the nature of good and evil, the consequences of defying divine order, and the enduring legacy of these extraordinary beings. In the end, the Nephilim are more than just a relic of ancient history. They are a symbol of the ongoing struggle between light and darkness, a struggle that continues to shape our world today. Whether seen as literal beings or as metaphorical representations of human and spiritual corruption, the Nephilim remain a powerful and enduring part of our collective consciousness. Thank you for watching this in-depth exploration of the Nephilim and their mysterious reappearance after the Great Flood. If you found this content intriguing, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more videos on the mysteries of the sacred scriptures and ancient lore. May God bless you, and see you in the next video.